Smokehouse ham, rotisserie pork loin, pork shoulder West Virginia style, and chorizo barbecued cabbage. We're high on the hog at the JW Marriott Star Pass Resort in Tucson, Arizona. I'm Stephen Raichlen, and this is Project Smoke.
We'll bring it in position right with Richard here. All right, we did it.
Okay. Think of your favorite smoked foods. Ham, bacon, ribs, pork shoulder, all come from the pig. Wood smoke transforms the rich meat of pork in ways nothing short of wondrous. Today, we're eating high off the hog. Up first, a whole pork shoulder ham you cure and smoke yourself. The process involves 4 classic techniques: brining, injecting, cold smoking, and hot smoking, and each adds a distinctive layer of flavor. This is a pork shoulder ham. It's cut from the lower half of a pork shoulder. And if you look, has the meaty part and then the shank end. Step number 1, prepare the brine. Bring 3 quarts of water to a boil. Then add kosher salt, brown sugar, bay leaves, black peppercorns, cloves, juniper berries, and a generous strip of orange zest, the oil-rich outer rind of the orange. The last ingredient is pink salt, sometimes called Prague powder. It's a mixture of salt and sodium nitrate. It's a preservative. It's also responsible for ham's pink color and that rich umami flavor. So we'll add 1 tablespoon. Now, whisk the ingredients for the brine until the salts and sugar dissolve. Once the salt is dissolved, add 2 quarts of ice water. This will bring the brine to room temperature, and if it's still a little warm, wait until it's completely cool. Then ladle about 1/10 of the brine mixture into a bowl. This is a meat injector. It's like an oversized hypodermic needle. Dip it in the brine and pull back on the plunger. Then stick the needle in the meat and slowly press down the plunger to inject the brine into the ham. The injected brine will cure the meat from the inside out. The soaking brine will cure the meat from the outside in. It's a way of speeding up the curing process and also making sure your ham is completely cured. Then place the ham in a large container and pour the remaining brine on top. The ham should be completely covered with brine. Cure the ham in the refrigerator for 1 week. Halfway through, take it out, re-inject it with brine, put it back in the refrigerator. Here is a ham that we brined a week earlier. Take the ham out of its brine, let it drain, and then place it on the wire rack and let it air dry for about 2 hours or until the surface feels tacky. You can see the meat has already started to take on that rosy color characteristic of ham. That is the result of the sodium nitrate in the pink salt. Now let me show you the smoker. To smoke the ham, we're using an offset barrel smoker with a vertical smoke chamber. I built a bed of charcoal embers in the firebox and added hickory logs to the embers. And in the cook chamber, I'm going to add a pan of ice to cool down the smoke. Now we'll do the cold smoking of the ham in this vertical smoke chamber. And the temperature here is about 100 degrees less than the temperature in the cook chamber. You want to cold smoke your ham at less than 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The ham has dried off. You see it feels tacky to the touch. You need that for the smoke to adhere to the surface. And you just want to lift the ham up, and then there's a tendon right here. Hook the ham under this tendon and hang the ham in the smoker. Now, there's actually a two-step smoking process. So the first step, you cold smoke the ham, that is temperature under 100 degrees, for about 10 hours. This penetrates the meat with the smoke flavor. Second step is a hot smoke in the cook chamber, and this actually cooks the ham. This will take about 8 hours. It's not a difficult process, but it's also not speedy. Fast forward 10 hours. Look how beautifully it's bronzed with smoke. So now, unhook it and place the ham in the cook chamber. You want the wider part of the ham facing the firebox, okay? Because you need more heat to cook this end. Close the cook chamber. I'll toss another log on the fire. You want to cook the ham until the internal temperature is about 165 degrees. Depending on the size of the ham, the ambient temperature, that can range anywhere from 6 to 10 hours. So it's been 7 hours, and the ham sure looks done. The skin is a beautiful mahogany brown. The meat has shrunk back from the ends of the bones. You always want to check. We're looking for 165 degrees. Bingo. Using heat-proof gloves, pull the ham off the heat and transfer it to a cutting board. Now, you can serve it hot or cold. The first step is to remove the skin. Some people like to cook their hams with the skin off. I like the look of the skin. Then with a long, slender knife, cut the ham into thin slices. Check out this handsome rose color. That is thanks to the cure with the pink salt and the long, slow smoke. Man, that looks great. Let's see how we did. This is so different than commercial ham. First of all, I mean, we started with great pork. We used heritage pork. This ham has a rich, smoky flavor. It's salty, but not overly salty. It's the difference between homemade and store-bought. What can I say? The anatomy of a smoker. Smokers range in size from handheld smoking devices to monster rigs trucked around the competition barbecue circuit. Some burn wood or charcoal, others run on propane or electricity, but all share a similar construction. At one end or at the bottom of the smoker is the firebox, where you burn the wood or wood products to generate smoke. At the other end, you find the chimney, which releases the smoke and creates a draft. Fire produces heat, yet most smoked foods are cooked at a low temperature. The heat diffuser shields the food from the full force of the fire. In a water smoker, it's the shallow bowl filled with liquid. In a ceramic cooker, it's the convection plate positioned between the embers and the grate. The smoke chamber, located adjacent to or directly above the firebox, is where the food smokes and cooks. Adjustable vents control the airflow and hence the heat in the smoker. Remember this simple formula. Greater airflow equals higher heat, reduced airflow equals lower heat. Talk about going whole hog. Our next dish combines a pork loin, pork tenderloin, and rack of pork chops in one awesome monster roast. Think coffee-based Java rub, think redeye gravy. I call it smoked rotisserie pork loin. One of my favorite techniques for cooking a big roast is what I call smoketisserie grilling or smoketisserie smoking. And it's cooking a cylindrically shaped piece of meat on a rotisserie, adding wood chips or wood to the fire so it both smokes and spit roasts. Now you'll need to special order this pork loin from your butcher. It consists of the rack of pork chops, the pork tenderloin, and on the other side, the pork loin, if you cut the back half of this roast crosswise, you get a pork porterhouse. Step number 1, make the rub. The rub starts with ground coffee, brown sugar, paprika, sea salt, freshly ground black pepper, and ground cumin. As always, mix the rub with your hands, breaking up any lumps in the brown sugar with your fingers. So next, sprinkle the rub over the roast on all sides. The coffee in the rub pays homage to the ham with redeye gravy cowboys used to make around the campfire. And last of all, don't forget to rub the end of the roast. Once the pork loin is rubbed, insert the rotisserie spit and run it the length of the roast. Just want to feel it come out the other end. Then insert the front prongs, twist, and use a fork to tighten up that lock nut. Then insert the rear prong, and again, snug up this lock nut. For this oversized pork roast, I'm going to use an oversized grill. Now, the first thing is to pull out the fuel tray, lighting a gas grill always with the lid open. When you hear ignition, then light 2 of the main burners. I have 2 pecan logs here. Lay them on the main burners long enough to ignite. Now close the fuel drawer and come back in 15 minutes. So the logs are lit and nicely charred. You want to move them so they run parallel to the spit. Take the pork roast and insert one end of the spit in this hole, the other end in the socket, and switch the rotisserie on. The cooking is going to be done by this front burner, and the smoky wood will provide a smoky flavor. Close the grill lid. Cooking time about 1.5 to 2 hours. Well, the smoketisserie pork loin should be done. Wow, does that look amazing? So just turn off the rotisserie. Let's check the temperature. We're looking for 150 to 155. Bingo. So now, arm yourself with grill gloves. Okay. Oh, wow. Now that is a pork roast. So, first thing, remove the prongs. And then pull out the spit. Make a cut along the backbone. It's really tender. Then stand the pork roast back up. You can start cutting it into chops. And with the cleaver, then you can turn the roast over. This is the pork tenderloin. Look at that. So place the pork roast here. slice the tenderloin crosswise into finger-thick slices. We're really lucky to be using a Duroc hog. That is a heritage breed, super flavorful. You know, how your meat is raised, where it comes from, matters as much as how you smoke it. And to serve with the pork, the redeye barbecue sauce. The recipe is on our website. We also have grilled heirloom tomatoes and grilled organic green onions. I'll take a mighty pork chop and a piece of pork tenderloin and a spoonful of the redeye barbecue sauce. This pork chop is so tender, so juicy. And what's really nice, this is just a light perfume of wood smoke. Now, I'll try the tenderloin with a little of the sauce. Obviously, that's the most tender part of this loin roast. What's nice about the sauce, it contains bacon, which ties back to the pork, and brewed coffee, which ties back to the coffee in the barbecue rub. So the next time you want to knock it out of the park, spit roast an entire pork loin. Barbecued cabbage is one of those eye poppers on the barbecue circuit. You take a whole head of cabbage, you hollow it out, you stuff it with bacon, barbecue sauce, and butter. Well, I had the idea to give it a sort of Mexican twist, cutting the cabbage in half lengthwise, stuffing it with chorizo sausage, pepper jack cheese, jalapeno chilies. Now, by cutting it in half lengthwise, the juices from all those ingredients flow in between the individual leaves. Start with a small green cabbage cut in half lengthwise. Melt butter in a skillet and saute 1/2 pound of fresh chorizo sausage, a small onion, and a couple of chopped jalapeno chilies. Once the sausage has rendered its fat and the ingredients are browned, stir in coarsely grated cheddar or pepper jack cheese and a 1/2 cup of chopped fresh cilantro. Place that mixture on the half cabbages. Then smoke the cabbage until very tender. It takes about 3 to 4 hours at 250 degrees. It looks really cool, and it just explodes with flavor. If you're new to smoking, start with Boston butt. It's incredibly versatile and easy to cook. And unlike, let's say, brisket, it's intrinsically tender. Thanks to its high fat content, it's incredibly forgiving, both of heat fluctuations and overcooking. Our next dish features an electrifying herb mixture and a long, slow smoke over applewood. This is a Boston butt. It's the top part of a pork shoulder. It comes from a heritage breed called Berkshire. It's characterized by this almost crimson-colored flesh and thick cap of fat. Remember, fat equals flavor. Next, the spice paste. It starts with a Simon and Garfunkel-esque mixture of parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme. Really? Followed by garlic, salt, paprika, black pepper, sugar for sweetness, hot pepper flakes, and allspice. Place the cap on the processor and grind these ingredients first on low speed, then high. Finally, work in a 1/4 cup of olive oil to form a thick paste. Now take the herb paste and spread it over the pork on all sides. It's incredibly fragrant. This pork really sings with flavor. Once the Boston butt is covered with herb paste, marinate it in the refrigerator for at least 4 hours, or as long as overnight. To To cook the Boston butt, I'm using an upright water smoker. It's fueled with charcoal briquettes that are studded with apple wood. And I have a chimney full of lit coals. Dump the lit coals on top of the unlit coals. This top-down burn method is great for low, slow smoking. Place the smoke chamber on top of the firebox. Then add the water pan and fill the water pan with water. Now, the water pan serves two purposes. First of all, it protects the meat from direct contact with the charcoal, so this is an indirect cooking method. Also, it fills the smoke chamber with humidity, which helps keep the pork moist. Next, add the bottom grate. Let's say if you were doing 6 Boston butts, you'd put 3 on the bottom, 3 on top. Next, our Boston butt. Simply place it fat side up on the grate and put the lid on the smoker. Now, if you want to reinforce the apple smoke flavor, toss a couple of chunks of apple wood on the charcoal fire. Finally, adjust the vents to obtain a temperature of 225 degrees. Cooking time, about 6 hours. That looks amazing. It's almost falling apart, which is where you want it to be. But as always, double check with an instant read meat thermometer. You're looking for 190 to 195 degrees. Bingo. This may seem a little more well done than you're used to for pork, but in order for it to slice or shred properly, you need to cook it to that high temperature. And then I'll just look through, see if there are any extraneous lumps of fat I need to remove. Pull those off. So, 2 options. You can either pull the pork into meaty shreds or slice it. Oh, man. This smells amazing. Nice. So just put the shoulder roast on a platter, and we can take some of the meat slices and arrange those on the platter as well. So here's your Boston butt, and check out the smoke ring. Really nice 1/4-inch smoke ring. So I'll just build a Boston butt sandwich. Another slice of Boston butt. Spoonful of mustard sauce. The recipe's on our website. Oh, man. This is really good. First taste of smoke. Underneath of that, all that herb marinade. Pork is super tender. Everything you could wish for Boston butt. Well, that's it for today, folks. Smokehouse ham, smoked hickory pork loin, barbecued cabbage, and Boston butt, West Virginia style. Thanks for going whole hog with me. See you next time. First, I'm gonna show off the meat. We're gonna make the rub. We're gonna rub the meat. We're gonna get it on the spit.
Okay.
All right. We're using wood chunks, right, for this?
How
Better or
long?
logs?
I think chunks are gonna go faster for you.
You know, I'm just wondering though, if we used logs, put one here, get them lit, then I could lay them across more cleanly and easily.
Sounds great.
Yeah.